What's up, guys? Max here with another episode of ScuttleButt Show, and I'm joined today by my good buddy and co-host, Van. Van, how are you doing?
Oh, Huya, I am. I'm doing all right, all things considered. Thank you very much. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Hey, if you guys are new to the weekly roundup that we're doing now, Van is one of the original co-hosts of the ScuttleButt Show. He's living in Texas, retired military, retired Navy. We worked together in the Navy, and now we're continuing on the ScuttleButt Show by covering the week's hottest military news stories for you here on the ScuttleButt Show. And our first story this week, I'm curious what you think about this, Van. Mass Communication Specialist Third Class Leo Katsarius has been granted by the Navy's personnel chief, the Chief of Personnel of the United States Navy, a special grooming kit allowing him to grow his beard up to 4 inches long in accordance with his religious beliefs of the Muslim religion. What are your initial impressions of that?
Oh, okay. Hold on. We got to prep the battle space here. I have not looked at any of these stories, and Max and I had talked about it, and we said, you know what, let's just run it by. Let's run it by me, and we're gonna see how the show goes with that. So that's, if you're picking up on that, that's what's happening. So we kind of did it intentionally. Okay. Name again is CM?
MC.
Okay.
Leo Katsarius.
Okay.
MC3.
Okay, so he's a mass communication specialist, right?
E4 in the Navy, mass communication specialist.
Okay, so his job, basically, he potentially could be writing content, maybe doing podcasts, something Navy related that's multimedia, his talents, his passion, his whatever. Obviously, he's a spiritual person. He has professional aspirations, and he chose the Navy for whatever reason. There is a multitude of reasons people choose the Navy. I know why I chose the Navy, or the military in general. I knew when I signed on that line, there was a handful of things I had no choice in, and I accepted that. And so one of those things, my religion, I was allowed have a religion I wanted, and I was allowed to put it on a dog tag. Type of services I wanted for a funeral, in the event that I was still active duty when I had a funeral, and so they could do honors and prepare for those things. But I have never, ever heard of anyone in the military getting any special privileges for religious purposes other than something like a specific day, like whatever. And I don't know all the different holidays of all the different religions, but they do have their own unique days. And I know that gets honored. And if I have even if I had somebody in the Navy who worked for me, in the, whatever religion, and they were in the duty section and they were supposed to be on duty, but they had to observe their religious practices, I have no choice whether I agree or not. I signed the dotted line that I respect, that I will follow the policies to respect that. And that's what it is. And so it sounds to me almost like that line of thinking is now turning into something far more personal. So the reason, I have two thoughts on this. My initial line of thought is, I just think everybody should be able to wear beards if they want to. It should be kept professionally, and there should be grooming policies for it. That's my initial thought. The policy isn't like that for a very good reason. And for those of you who've watched the show for a while, we talked about it before. The original watch on a ship is for fire watch. The common day fire watch, and we were just talking about the Bonhomme Richard the other day. All those guys put on their protective gear. You have got to be able to create a seal, an airtight seal on your face. That is why the policy exists. As far as functional, reason, it helps keep the crew safe, and it helps keep the ship afloat. Those are my thoughts. I don't think anybody. I remember in my boot camp, all of my RDCs were from Trinidad. I remember that, and it was just sort of a unique thing. And we had a couple people from Trinidad in my boot camp division. And I remember the first thing that they taught all of us, we were all standing there looking across from each other. We all come from different places. We all look different. We all talk different. We all got different names. But the first thing they said, we're going to all get right, is ain't nobody special. and which means your God's not more special than mine. Which, while we're talking about it, the only thing I got out of this conversation is they should change the Pledge of Allegiance to one nation under all gods and just bury it.
So it's in the article here that I'm reading, it says it notes that the Army in 2017 made it easier for soldiers to get religious appearance accommodations, and the Air Force did the same in 2020, giving airmen with religious or medical exemptions the ability to grow 2-inch beards. And the government has an obligation to accommodate certain religious preferences based on the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which is an official law passed. Now, and then let me just read this quote from Leo Katsarias, who said, "For too long, sailors like me have had to choose between serving our country and expressing our deeply held religious beliefs." So what you said about when you enlist, you should be aware of what you're signing up for. I agree. You shouldn't, if you're going to sign the contract and then as soon as you get in, go, well, now I want to change the deal. Now I want to change the conditions, you know?
I want to be a woman and I want to have a beard.
And if you do that, well, that, yeah, I'm actually more okay with if you want to switch your gender than if you wanted to grow your beard. And I've got my own thoughts on that, but that's a separate.
I like Dave Chappelle's take on it, man. I like Dave Chappelle's take on it, man. He's like, "Are you serious if you can do that?" I don't know.
Yeah. So if you want to then grow a beard, but you signed the contract, you agreed, and then you want to switch the deal, I don't like that. Okay, I don't like that. Now, if I believe people initially until they give me a reason not to, that people are acting in good faith. So if he's saying that the choice exists for him, that if he couldn't grow a beard, he could never serve his country and he wants to, then maybe the policy should be at certain duty stations, certain rates can have exceptions to grooming standards. But I don't believe in making special exceptions to policy for individuals who all of a sudden decided that they're not happy with the conditions that they signed up for. And then, but I have to also think this too. I have to think about if I'm thinking about the whole thing, there's tons of sailors who have beards due to razor bumps. And a lot of those guys are scamming the system a little bit, if we're being honest. So some are legit, some are scamming the system, and they grow beards. And a lot of those guys have certain regulations that they're supposed to follow. A lot of those beards are pushing the limits on the regulations, and we let that slide all the time. As long as you got your no shave shit in your pocket, you're all good. Now, do people appreciate and respect that when it's happening? Obviously, they don't, but people get away with it all the time. So if it's all good because you get a couple razor bumps, and I'm doing air quotes because we know a lot of people who scam the system, then is it the right thing to do to shut someone down who says that they're doing it for religious reasons also? I don't know. I can see it both ways. And then the other thing that I'll add is, who do we, myself included, who do we let grow big ass 8-inch long beards?
Yeah, how do you pick and choose?
Special forces on deployment, right? Apparently, if you're on a combat deployment in Iraq, Afghanistan, other whatever countries that you're not supposed to be in, you can have an 8-inch beard, and you're the most likely person who's going to need to don CBR gear or come in contact with, burning chemicals or burning poop or whatever it is. And you can have an 8-inch beard and it's all good, a foot long beard, no problem. Relaxed grooming standards, right? So right. Is the threat so real that we need to enforce the no beard thing? But with all that being said,
let me rebuttal. Okay, but when you finish, and then I'll rebuttal.
Counter. With all that being said, I still don't think we should make special exceptions for individuals. I think the policy should be looked at as a whole, because if the responsibility falls on this sailor that when he joined the Navy, he knew the deal.
Totally.
And now he's asking for special comment.
And I'm seeing your side. Like I'm seeing your side. Like these guys that are deployed, but in CBR. Okay. But I just want to break it to the basics. This is about fire watch. This is about toxic fumes, and this is about not necessarily the CBR, the chemical, biological, radiate. Those things can also, but just the firefighting, you know, the rebreather is really, you know, when they go to fight fires, you know, that's potentially could be your last line of defense. And you know what? It's going to be a little bit of leak. You're probably going to be all right. Right. But maybe what they've determined is that, you know, if you got to a point where you're exhausted or your oxygen exhausted and you lay down, you know, and before you can even give yourself a chance to like, because you're already compromised because you've been inhaling smoke already. Who knows what the reasons are? I'm just saying there's 1,000 ways to skin it. All I'm saying is I do believe that you and I are saying pretty special. And we're going to start saying certain people are special, then let's make it special. Now, he was going to be like an imam for the Navy, right? Where he would, he does his job. He travels for more than half the year, where he's going around and he's doing, you know, the Islamic cultural things for, you know, our Muslim service members, you know, and delivering on that message. Now, in that environment, I think that's perfectly acceptable and absolutely unique and special. And because it's in their teachings that's, you know, that's part of, you know, the way you're supposed to be human. That's, to them, you're not a clean, good human. I'm sure there's a teaching along the lines. That's why it's so serious to them. So I don't want to take that away. I don't want to take that understanding and that away from them. But at the same time, we live in a world where there's a lot of paths that any one person can take. And as soon as one person expects all those paths to make an exception for them, then who's in line next? And who's in line next? And then who's going to get smart and say, well, instead of waiting in line, because I'm number 5 million, I'm going to go pair up with number 7. And for the first time, we're going to look at number 7 problem and go, oh, wow, there's 2 people, 1 problem now. And then it just keeps going and going and going. And then until you get to a point where everybody's this free radical who they have rights. They have all their universal rights, all their national rights, you know, all of their human rights, you know, they have everything. And so does everybody else. But somehow nobody feels like they have anything and nobody's okay with it. So how do we avoid that from happening? You know, we have to have some accountability. Hey, it was painful. Like I enjoy having long hair. Like I had long hair before I came to the military. And, you know, for me, I gave that up. You know, that was part of my identity that I gave up. And it was just something I was going to experience. You know, when people asked me, you know, why I cut it this day, it's just, I had to do it, and I'm willing to do it. So I'm okay with it. It'll grow back. And so that was me. I took the hit. I didn't expect the Navy to take the hit. I took it because I can absorb that a lot easier than the Enterprise can, because now the Enterprise is going to have to pick and choose who's going to grow beers. And then, you know what you're going to get? You're going to get the dudes who are calling the razor bumps now. They're going to be like, I'm Muslim. And they don't get to say, prove it. And now they get a 4-inch beard. That's the problem. That is when we start getting into that, who's to say whose walk with God is closer or more important or more critical to whatever they're trying to do with their life. So that was just my counter, not my counter, but I wanted to contribute that also, because I think we're talking the same language. What a crazy story, dude. But an MC, you know, I will say this, and this is on a very different level. If a person is being seen, there's another little thing that needs to be looked at completely. If that person is being seen throughout the fleet on whatever was the name of that channel, AFN?
Yeah.
And now you get a new sailor who comes in next year. He doesn't know about that rule. He has to ask. So are you telling me does this MC feel empowered now because he's now helping young sailors understand how to be more flexible to unique people? What are we really teaching? What fire are we trying to put out here? That's all I'm saying. What fire are we trying to put out? his own fire. And you know what? I didn't join the Navy to go fight fires at your house. So go take care of your fire at your house and then join the Navy.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think, what was there's definitely chaplain corps, religious services personnel who have beards, that's definitely a thing already. I see that actually quite frequently, considering how many people that there are, like a high number of the small number of people, which is still a small number, but like per capita is a lot. So if you have certain religious services, they are allowed to grow beards, especially Army, Air Force. I see it out here in Okinawa, with a number of people for sure. And then the thing is, we already do it with the razor bumps thing. Like,
yeah,
you have to go ask somebody to prove that they have razor bumps. You know what I mean? And you can, like, if you have a shaved chit for razor bumps, I'm trying to remember exactly the policy, but you have to shave every once in a while and prove that you still get them.
You have to keep it clean looking, like professional looking.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to shave.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to shave. And you know what I hate is, if you've ever seen somebody who gets it really bad, it looks excruciatingly painful and a horrible breakout, and like it looks really bad. And then you know other people who are like, oh, I got redness, and then they get a no shave chit so that they can grow this like beard, and it's kind of shady. And
do we both agree though? Do we both agree that just let people have beards? F it. Like, why even concern ourselves with it?
I got
make them sign up page 13. If you're gonna have a beard, you might die from smoke.
I gotta think. Well, I gotta think about it. I gotta think about that. I don't know.
Because we're letting go of something that, because when I was asked to care, the only thing I could care about was that seal on that mask. That's the only thing that I care about. I don't care how a person looks in uniform. I really don't. I don't. And I want people that do their job well and represent the uniform well. I expect them to keep it clean. I expect them to keep it nice. But that would be my only expectation. But of course, I'm not really
I don't care about the mask thing. And it's kind of for what I was saying about, like, if the mask thing was that important, there would be no exception. If the mask thing was that important, there would be no exception. Not for razor bumps, because the pain of the razor bumps would not outweigh the pain of dying in a fire or dying from CBR attacks. Okay.
Right.
If it was that important, there'd be no exceptions. But
let's change it.
Tons of exceptions. So change the policy. So change the policy. That's what my thing is. So and that's what I always go back to, right? If we're gonna make a big deal about making exceptions for individuals, just change the policy so it's more clear. And or don't, or hold your ground, you know?
Yeah. But make a decision, for God's sake.
But these half measures of no shave chits, I don't like that. So
I find it divisive.
Because it's
totally designed to be inclusive, but I find it very divisive.
It totally takes away the argument for the mask thing to me. That's why I don't like the mask argument, because if the mask argument was legit, we wouldn't have any exceptions. But there's tons of dudes on ships with no shave chits. Tons. Probably 5 to 10% of your.
Well, I remember they did on one cruise I went on, they did an MWR, like MWR is Moral Welfare Recreation, and what they do is when they hit port, they try to like scrape together a couple bucks by doing like burger sales and stuff like that, and they try to do something for the crew at pier side. And so we were, it was World Cruise 2005, and we were we knew we were going to be out to sea. We were out to sea a handful of times over a month, so it was just one of those times. And I think after a week, the first week of being at sea, I think we did one on rep or something, and then so we had to see people. And then after that, the crew was allowed, you could pay $5 and basically get a no shave chit for 2 weeks until we hit port. So maybe the Navy is also in a situation where they have to protect the unknown. In other words, they have to protect the mother of the sailor, the parents of the sailor who's fighting that fire, and make them understand that the Navy did everything in their ability to protect their child. And maybe that's the question we should ask MC or your parents rather have a child or you have a beard, or would God rather you have a beard? And that's a personal question, and that's deep, and I have no right to ask that question. But he needs to ask himself that question if he really wants to dig in. If you want to dig in, bro, you want my opinion? I don't give a fuck. Everybody wants beards, grow beards. Chicks want to wear beards, go for it. I don't care. But you better have professionalism. You better know your fucking job. You better be fucking good at it. And I want to hear all the good stories and all the good jokes. So, you know, like there's still work to be done outside of this BS, dude. Like, what's next? Are we gonna take away the uniform?
Well, so I think that the question I would ask, and then we'll move on to the next thing. We'll do one more. We'll do one more story. The question that I would ask is, so I don't believe that the gas mask requirement is a good argument. I don't believe that's a good argument. I don't think I am totally on board with saying that everyone should have a beard. What I think is there's probably better reasons. You know what I mean? And to me, a better reason would be because we said so. Like if the military if the Navy just came out and said, no, you can't have a beard because we said so, because that's the policy and we're not changing it, perfectly good reason. But if people go out to try to justify this gas mask thing, you could poke holes in that all day. Now, alternatively, if I had to come up with one other reason really quick, just off the top of my head, onto why beards are bad, is first aid. So if you had a big beard and you had a trauma to your face, which is common, right? Common, it would be much harder to treat, get you an airway, get you a trach, something like that, if you had that kind of trauma to your face. So if there's anything, but then, you know, should you shave your chest? Should you shave your chest?
Conversely, those beard hairs make really good handles. So you could do the tilt thrust thing. I mean, there is, I mean, we could do it either way, because the other thing that, as you were saying that I was thinking was, well, what about ID cards? And then I thought, well, guys already got beards who have ID cards. You know what I mean? Like, so
we've had relaxed grooming standards in the Navy and gone on base with our ID cards. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So wait a second, let's put this thing to bed here, and then we can move on to your next one. So I just want to know, what was your final thought on the situation? Are you in support of MC2, or do you need to talk to him?
I need him to report to my office. See, here's the deal. I don't support making special accommodations for individuals. I think that if you want to do that, you need to look at the whole policy. And I don't think gas masks are a good argument. And I don't think firefighting is a good argument. I think you could probably come up with an alternative good argument, but the best argument is because we said so. I wish more people would just say, because this is what's happening. I wish more people would do it because this is happening because we said so. That's it. This is the military.
Yeah. And if you really want to get into it, I do think that there should be sound explanation and definition as to why, without an option for feedback. Like, if you really want to know, this is where it comes from. This is the history of it. There you go. Have a nice culture. Have a nice Navy culture, because that's what it's like, bro. Sorry. Like, you just don't get a lot of options here.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay too. So I'm going to name your argument the Three Musketeers argument, because I agree with you. And I ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm a universal rights guy, and I believe one for all for one. So if there's a single person who causes us to question the policy, let's review it. Is the policy even required? Is it even necessary anymore? Is it something that we've outgrown?